Looking around you, things seem fine. Many mountains left to climb. Looking around you, things seem good, but Earth is so misunderstood. I wish that folks would take a stand, step up, do something, lend a hand. Invested all my time and heart. Now others need to play their part. Right now, some way, somehow, I need you to take over my vow, my final bow. I need you to take over.
The Stage Door Show, celebrating the independent artist. With your host, Dave Hondel.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Stage Door Show. Tonight, my guest is coming to us all the way from Zürich, Switzerland. She created an ambitious and eco-friendly musical called TREESON, and we can't wait for her to tell us about her amazing work. Please welcome to the show, Victoria Campbell. Thank you for joining me, Vicki.
Thanks for having me, Dave. My pleasure.
Now, let's have our listeners get to know you a little bit. As I know, besides being a playwright and making music, you're an industrial organizational psychologist. Tell us what that is, and is there a relationship between that and your art?
Yes, very good question. And so I hear two parts to that question. So first of all, I've always been interested in the human condition, in mental health, emotional health, and our ability to learn and grow to be better versions of ourselves, and really, more importantly, our capacity to uplift each other as a collective and as a society. And I think that both psychology and music can do that. And I've always been interested in both. I majored in psychology and I minored in music. So with that in mind, to go back to the first part of the question, which is what is industrial organizational psychology, which is a mouthful. So I call it IO psychology for short, and it's basically the psychology of work. So it's the study of human behavior in the workplace. So whereas traditional psychology focuses on mental health, IO psychology focuses on organizational health and understanding people and tapping into their potential while they're at work. In my prior life, before music, I worked for companies as a consultant, leading various employee programs or helping individual employees through personal work-related transformations. And so that's kind of what IO psychology is in a nutshell. So the second part of your question is, how does it relate to music and my art? So music for me is kind of the same thing. It's trying to inspire personal awareness, personal change. And when it comes to my art, this is in reference to the audience as opposed to employees. So yes, there is absolutely a relationship between IO psychology and my art. Ultimately, I want to help influence people and empower them and challenge them to live up to their potential for the greater good. So whether it's writing a business case for change for a new company program, or whether it's writing a musical, it's really the same goal, which is to move people emotionally and bring them along for the ride on an emotional level before they're moved on a practical level. And so really, psychology, my art, it's really just intended to inspire people toward action, to not just entertain and educate, but really just empower them to act.
As you're talking, I thought about something that I wanted to ask you, because during the pandemic, the pandemic has been going on for, as we know, almost a year now, and we're seeing a lot of people either lose their jobs. I was furloughed myself for 4 months, and I work in the corporate world in New York City. Of course, we're able to work from home, which isn't always the case with a lot of people that have, frontline jobs. But, how has your job, and even, we talk about this with the arts as well, because a lot of independent artists are out of work as well, or we're having to do things through Zoom or through other platforms that don't have, people around, either at a venue or in the workplace. So how has that affected your business or your job? I mean, is that made you, I guess, busier, or is this something that it doesn't really change no matter where you work, either from home or on the in the workplace? Does that change for you?
Yeah, so for me, it hasn't really changed much. So right now I'm doing like gig-based work, so business consulting for a global firm. And so for me, I'm not doing an internal role, so I have to have a lot of flexibility. I would say, more than ever, there's this increased passion towards like vision, mission-based work. Even before the pandemic, but definitely now more than ever. Like, you're seeing organizations realizing that employees, they don't want to just make a paycheck. They don't want to just make money, go on vacation. Especially now, no one's going on vacation. People really aren't traveling or taking advantage of some of these more like tangible, monetary kind of compensational things. And so people are looking for deeper, like more meaningful connection to their work and wanting to work for companies who have like environmental responsibility or like social programs or community-based programs. Patagonia is an example of a great company who is not just an outdoor gear company. They're a company that's really focused on like making the planet a better place. And so I'm seeing it more from like the types of projects that companies are focusing on. But for me, like in my 9 to 5, my work ebbs and flows, which has given me a lot of flexibility to create art, which I'm really thankful for.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm the same way, and I think a lot of artists, regardless if you're a writer, singer, producer, actor, I think that the pandemic, if anything, has given us artists, time to really, kind of dig into our passion and our art. So I think if people took advantage of it, great, and so it's allowed me to do it as well with the podcast. But, speaking of environmentally friendly, talk about your musical TREESON, TREESON. I just want to make sure I spell that out because it's pronounced treason, but it's TREESON, focusing on environmental concerns. And, first of all, your music is amazing, but tell us what led to you writing that musical and what it's about.
Yeah, definitely, and thank you. I really appreciate the compliments. So TREESON was like very organic and also very sudden. So I think with the pandemic and everybody being in lockdown and just unable to see the world, to see friends and family, I had a lot of time, like most of the world, to really like process and reflect my feelings. And I also I miss home. So I'm from Seattle, Washington, in the United States. I haven't been back to Seattle in 18 months since I moved before the pandemic, and then was barely here before the pandemic hit. And so initially, TREESON was really just a bunch of poems. It was me journaling, me processing my feelings, me just being kind of down on the dumps. And in the early days of the pandemic, I was reading all the news. Everybody was reading all the news. And I came across little pieces of positive news, though, amidst all of this negative, like, depressing news, saying, the pandemic really sucks. People are dying, people are hurting, people are losing their jobs. But guess what? The silver lining is that Earth has a chance to breathe and a moment to heal from human activity, because people weren't traveling, people weren't putting their direct footprint on the environment. And I started to realize, based on what I was reading in the news, that pollution was declining, animals were reclaiming their territory, and people like me and you were getting outside more and hiking more and becoming more one with nature. And so it really started off as me just writing about my memories of the Pacific Northwest. Some of the poetry was from the perspective of somebody accusing me of harming the environment. Other poems were from the perspective of somebody seeking purpose in life, kind of going back to that original question about what is psychology and what are people looking for in their work: more purpose, more vision, more mission. And so I saw this like unifying thread across all of the poetry, and I was like, wait a minute, there's like a story here that needs to be told. It's all related to environmental stewardship, and it's all related to finding purpose in work. And so poetry turned into lyrics turned into melodies, and I wrote an outline for the whole story, figured out what all the songs were going to be about, and before I knew it, I had a musical about environmental stewardship on my hands.
Oh, it was really amazing. And you talk about being from Seattle. I had a film that was in a film festival in Tacoma, actually, but we spent a lot of time in Seattle and went up to the Olympic Peninsula and just really kind of went all over the place. And I just absolutely loved, like, Port Townsend, and Pacific Northwest is one of my favorite all-time places. So when you mentioned that, I'm like, wow. Well, and first, what a place for environmental work too. I mean, that's just such a great place for. I mean, the rainforest and just so many cool things in that neck of the woods. So yeah, I mean, that's one of, if all our listeners, if any of our listeners have not been to Seattle, you have to go. As soon as you can, as soon as the pandemic's over, book a trip to Seattle because you won't regret it. It's definitely cool. But talk about the music and the production. You just recently talked about that, but I heard the cast recording and it's really incredible work, I have to say. And I've been around Broadway for many years with my daughter, work in New York City on Broadway, and with a lot of our friends on Broadway, and the soundtrack rivals any of those soundtracks I've heard. Give us some insight to some of the songs, because I'd love for our listeners to hear some of the tracks.
Oh my goodness, thank you so much for such a nice compliment. I will take it. So Treason is the contemporary musical. So not just in the activist message of the show and addressing a current problem, but in the musical styles as well. And so I guess on a broader scale, the music of Treason is Americana. So it fuses jazz, blues, pop rock, definitely folk. It even has some inspirational tones to it, not in the religious sense, but inspirational in mood and sentiments. And so, I'm an American and the show is set in America, so that makes sense. But to be honest, I wrote music that I thought sounded good and music that I thought fit the emotions and tone of each character. And it was really only after the cast album was complete that I realized these songs fit subgenres within the Americana genre. And so this first clip is from a song called More, and it's performed by Ash. He's the main character. He's dreading going into work, and he's lying in bed. He is searching for something, but he doesn't yet know what that is. And so his songs tend to have more of a pop rock sound, because right now he's kind of status quo. He's mainstream commercial. And we have the amazing Danielle Allen Carter performing on this song.
You wake up and lie in bed, not sure what lies ahead. It's just another day of dread. Wonder if you should pray. Got nothing else more to say. It's just another day of gray. But you've got to keep on keeping on. Hold fast, you are strong. There's still time left to right this wrong. Your song's not done. Turn that dread into dreams. Think of what could be. Get out of bed and you will see there's more to life than this. Each day.
So this next clip is called Dynasty, and it's performed by the character Don, who was Ash's father. Don is the current CEO of Hosenfirma, a logging empire, and he's telling it like it is to Ash. This song has a different sound from the first song because he is kind of a stereotypical white male, and he represents capitalism and wealth and power. And so I wanted this song to have more of an old school American Western vibe to kind of match his personality. And it's performed by the amazing Colin Wardale from the UK.
You roll in at 11:15. Your location is frequently unknown. You're very hard to reach. I don't mean to preach, but you've got to learn to pick up your damn phone. You've traveled and been to many countries. This place you think you've outgrown. Exposed to many cultures, it appears you're at a juncture, but this family you cannot disown. So what will you do? You're at a crossroads, a moment of truth. Which fork to take? Make no mistake. It's time to wake up. It's time to pull through.
Clip is from a song called Take Over, and it's performed by the character Tara, Terra. Tara is a passionate environmental activist, but also a symbol for Mother Earth. And she's basically pleading with us humans to take over her mission, to take care of the planet. And this is performed by yours truly.
Looking around you, things seem fine. Many mountains left to climb. Looking around you, things seem good, but Earth is so misunderstood. I wish that folks would take a stand, step up, do something, lend a hand. Invested all my time and heart. Now others need to play their part. Right now, some way, somehow, I need you to take over my vow, my final bow. I need you to take over. I've walked the same old path before, a million times it seems or more. I've hiked these hills so frequently, so hard at first, now easily. I wish I had a bit more time, a few more seasons would be fine. If I had known what was to be, would I have done things differently? Right now, some way, somehow, I need you to take over my vow, my final vow. I need you to take over. I feel like crying when I think of it. I'd be lying to deny. I won't stop trying till I give my all. Dying's not an option today.
This last clip is from a song called Birth to Earth, and Birth to Earth is about regrowth, hope, and inspiration. It's the finale in the show, and it's an ensemble piece with Ash and the activists. And they're all at the cliffs overlooking the ocean. It's early morning, there's fog, there's mist, there's peeking sun through the clouds, and they've come together to unite. The activist songs tend to have a more earthy folk sound with lots of native and indigenous instruments and human percussion. So there's instruments like the ukulele, djembe drums, and some flutes. And this song is an anthem to everyone to play their part.
Is that you appear, reminding us you're near. You surround us, all around us, you're here. Is that you, my dear, telling us you're near. You surround us, all around us, you're here. And we all must return to dust. Everything that ever was, we all live, we all die, we all have to say goodbye. Now's the time.
That's great. So what are your plans for releasing this recording and the musical itself? I mean, what are the plans in the near future for that?
Yeah, it's really exciting. So the entire original cast recording is complete, and it's actually being released next week. So on Friday, January 15th, the album will be out in all digital stores and all streaming platforms. So this is really a huge milestone for us. And so from there, the plan is to continue to network with people, create interest and buzz, and of course, continue to refine and revise the script and the songs to make it the best show possible. I've just been applying to tons of festivals and workshops and like cold calling producers and people in the industry, just wanting to connect with people who are passionate about art, obviously, but really are passionate about telling stories with purpose and stories with a mission and stories that inspire people. So those are kind of the next steps for TREESON, the album coming out, and then just refining the show.
I mean, are you hoping to either take this on tour or have it on off Broadway or Broadway eventually? Is that the main goal?
Yes, absolutely. The end goal is always Broadway or West End. It's good to dream big.
And you mentioned West End. This kind of leads to my next question. But you live in Zürich, Switzerland, which is beautiful, also. And I have to ask you. I mean, what is the theater environment there versus the maybe U.S. or London West End? The audience. I mean, aside obviously right now from COVID, nobody's really going to the theater. But have you spoken to people, or have you gotten kind of a feel what the theater vibe is there?
Yeah, I've been networking a lot with people here in the industry. I know some theater directors and some artists. I would say, Zurich, Switzerland is obviously much different than that of London or New York's theater scenes, or really probably the U.S. in general. Zurich is not a huge city. It's really quite small and cozy, even smaller than Seattle. And so I think as a result, the theater scene is a bit more subdued. That said, Switzerland is a really wealthy country, and Zurich is a really thriving city with a lot of money and a lot of culture. And so there isn't like a huge musical theater presence, but there's a huge appreciation for the broader arts. There's an opera house, there's an annual film festival every fall, and many, many small theaters with like contemporary avant-garde productions. There's even a local musical theater school here where a couple of my singers that I found are from, and they're training to be performers. So it's nothing like the States or London or New York. I really need to tap into the States and the UK for that. But there's certainly an appreciation, and there's many. And so I think there's, a potential for more of a musical theater scene moving forward.
Now, Vicki, when did you become interested in theater, and exploring your love for singing? I mean, was that a young age, or did you kind of grow into it? At what age, I guess, did you become interested in pursuing the arts?
Yeah, so I guess I've been interested in theater for as long as I can remember. I grew up watching musicals on film. My parents had old VHS tapes of Rodgers and Hammerstein shows, Sound of Music. I grew up watching Disney, all the Disneys. But I never really imagined that I would be creating art as a writer or as a composer or lyricist. I was more interested in like the performance aspects. And so I was very, very shy growing up. Like, singing took a lot of pressure from my friends and my family. Like, I was so shy, I wouldn't even like raise my hand in class to answer a question. I hated getting called on. I hated public speaking, and I certainly wouldn't have imagined that I would be singing solos in public. But I joined choir with peer pressure. As you're a kid, you get into peer pressure, and started to build confidence over time when I had musical directors and choir directors encouraging me and motivating me. And so I probably got into singing solos and having confidence in middle school and high school. But to the point where I needed to decide what I was going to study in college, I went with at the time I thought was more practical field of study, and so I focused on majoring in psychology and working toward my Ph.D. in psychology. It just seemed more practical at the time. And I was self-aware enough to know that I don't have a ton of stage presence, and vocal performance is really competitive, and so I figured I should leave it to the pros. But I've always been interested in the arts as a consumer, seeing shows as often as I can all over the world, and I really was just focused on singing and then, karaoke bars, but I never would have thought I would have created my own show from scratch. So, I was interested, but never really thought about it as a profession until now. Yeah,
I just talk about that a little bit more because, when you mention, it gives you confidence. I was very shy too. I mean, as a kid, and so was my son and my daughter as well. And they both got into theater, and that's really when I started to I was always in sports, and when my kids got into theater, it started my passion in the theater as well. But I saw from a very young age that people that might be shy or maybe are hesitant to, like you said, raise your hand or get involved with anything in front of people, they flourish on stage because it's the arts. I don't know whatever you're doing in the arts, it gives you confidence to be, like that person outside of the arts. It gives you that confidence, and that's why I'm a huge advocate for for funding in schools for art programs as opposed to just sports, because I think arts really gives people the confidence that they need as people, and also. And now you're a psychologist, but tell me if I'm wrong, but it helps with test scores as well with kids in either middle school, high school that are getting ready for college. The arts makes you think differently, maybe more broadly, and it raises test scores. I mean, do you have any opinion on that or thoughts on that in your field?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I agree with you. I mean, there's studies that show there's, music is very mathematical, lots of numbers involved, and there's studies that show that people who focus on music or the arts, they're more well-rounded as students and in all the fields. And I think it gives you more awareness to how, just not who you are as a person, but how you impact other people. So I think the thing that for me got me over my stage fright was when I realized, this isn't for me to be famous or for me to be a star, for people to look at me. This is really about the story that I want to tell the audience and how I want to impact them and how I want to move them and impress upon them. And so I think performing, it builds confidence, but I think it also makes people realize that there's something beyond themselves, and it makes them more empathetic, more able to relate to other people, to see things from different perspectives. And maybe I'm just being way too hokey here, but I truly believe that. I think that people just become more well-rounded, kind human beings when they're involved in the arts.
I completely agree with you 100%. That was very well said. The other thing I want to talk about real quick about the pandemic. I know that we talked about this earlier, but it gives people a lot of time to, especially, people that are in the arts to kind of, hone their craft a little bit. And, as far as the focus on your musical, I mean, did that really, during that time frame, give you the time to really focus on, the words or the songs that you wanted to create and, give you that ability to really put out the best work that you possibly could?
Yes, 100%. To be honest, this musical would not have happened if there wasn't the pandemic. Like most of the world, I was way too distracted with the monotony of normal life, working, traveling, signing out, being social, and I just didn't make time for me to reflect, who am I, not really just as an artist, but more importantly as an activist, as a member of society. I was just so caught up in my own world that the pandemic, once we were stuck at home, I was just more reflective and more contemplative and really trying to figure out, who is Vicky? How can I be a better version of myself? How can I be a better contributor to society? And that's the kind of the first answer because I had so much time to create. But secondly, I think the pandemic gave me the opportunity to work with people all over the world. I probably would have just focused on working with people locally in person if there wasn't a pandemic. But being stuck inside, I was compelled to work with people in all time zones, and I cast a much wider net. For example, my arranger, he's super talented, Joseph Perdue, he's from the UK, and I wouldn't have ever thought about working with somebody not in my city if there wasn't a pandemic. The same with my singers. A couple of them are from here, from Switzerland, but I have singers from 7 different countries, and so I think ultimately I was able to land on a better final product as far as an original cast recording for the cast album.
What is the main message of your musical? What do you want them to talk about on their way home? I mean, what's the main message that you want to get across?
Yeah, TREESON is about finding purpose, and finding purpose to be a better member of society and to be a better member of the collective. It's about collectivism, not individualism. It's about environmental activism. So, the message is, the tagline of the show is, will you play your part before it's too late? And that's the motto, that's the slogan, that's in one of the choruses of one of the main songs. Will you play your part before it's too late? And so TREESON it's an activist musical, and it's about this guy who's torn between profits and purpose, and he's torn between doing the easy thing or doing the hard thing. when the hard thing is better for society. And so with Treason, I want to impassion people to mobilize on behalf of the planet to leave the theater ready to act and think about that tagline, you know, will you play your part before it's too late?
Oh, great. And then, you know, also tell our listeners how they can find you on social media and, you know, information about the musical.
Yeah, so people can find out more about Treason by following @TreasonMusical on all of the main social media platforms, so Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. It's Treason with 2 E's. And they can check out the website, treasonmusical.com. And, of course, got to do one last plug. They can go to Spotify, iTunes, Apple Music to check out the Treason original cast recording album on Friday, January 15th.
Well, G. Victoria Campbell, thank you so much for being with us tonight. And, you know, again, everybody, all our listeners need to go out and, first of all, get this cast album. I've listened to it. It's amazing. And also check it out on social media and also the website. And again, G. Victoria Campbell, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much, Dave. My pleasure.
So what will you do? You're at a crossroads, a moment of truth. Which fork to take? Make no mistake. It's time to wake up. It's time to